Hello and welcome to Take Your Time, a Persona 3 Reload podcast where we play through Persona 3 Reload. That's the game that I just mentioned, week by week, day by day, along with the in-game calendar. My name is Jonathon Dornbush, one of your hosts this week, joined as always, I don't know where words go, by Tom Marks. Tom, hello.
Hello.
By the way, I was messing those words up. I should have called you Marks Tom, but here we are. We'll see how the episode goes. Tom, I'm coming off of eating a Chipotle style bowl that I made at home that is about maybe double the size of a Chipotle bowl. You're in a heat wave. I really think we're going to be bringing the energy this week, is what I gotta say for the audience.
Yeah, and I just saw spiders crawling on my camera, so you know.
Oh, fun. I would have shrieked, so.
They're teeny tiny. There's lots of them in my house.
That's fair.
They're like basically ants.
I could not live there. I have such a thing about spiders. But anyway, we are going to be discussing this week the days of July 8th through 13th, which, yes, is one less day to account for some scheduling stuff going on this month, but there is no lack of things to discuss from this week because there's some revelations, story moments, some things going on that we can discuss ahead of the exams we have coming up next week and just following the FMO, as we're calling it now. Of course, we have all of our housekeeping to do at the top of the show before we get there, so I'll start things off there. And that starts with, of course, our confidant call out. This is a huge thank you to everyone out there who supports us over at patreon.com/takeyourtime at the Palace Ruler tier. Thank you all so much for supporting us and helping to make this show happen. And a huge thank you to Akechi is a Jelly Bean, Astral Clock Tower, Cameron C., Dallas, Damon, Dan F., Danimal Lover 01, Default Titus, Dexter, Goro Akechi, Keegan H., Michael V., Philip S., Programmer Sid, Sam K., Sarah M., Shade, Willie Wang Wang, and Zachary L. I appreciate you doing a Brady Bunch intro for that. I was thinking one week I should do it like the SNL intro, but that would take about 30 minutes, which is awesome. Because all of you are supporting us and we appreciate it so much. So a huge thank you to all of you showing us the love over there at the Patreon, as well as to everyone else supporting us over there. It means so much to us to help keep this show going. So thank you. We do, of course, also want to mention our latest bonus episode. We're on track. We are doing things on time now. Is coming out just a couple days after this one. So if you are a Palace Ruler tier member or a member of C's over at the patreon.com/takeyourtime, you will get this latest bonus episode, which is Tom and I talking about what it's like to review big RPGs and kind of just like a little bit of our history when it comes to reviewing and things of that nature, which was also a lot of questions and input from some of y'all over at the Patreon. So that was a fun one to record, and we hope you enjoy it.
Yeah, a little more inside baseball than we've done on this show, and a little less Persona specific. But, you know, it's fun, and people were asking for it, and we're happy to do stuff like that over there on the bonus episodes.
Exactly. And we'll, as we are saying with that episode, we are planning to be on a more regular cadence of having those bonuses come out mid-month. So stay tuned for more about pitching in on what you want to hear for August. But August is weeks away. We got stuff to talk about, including looking back a week. And I'm going to start there with the pop quiz. Tom.
Yes. So I said that there is an advertisement for a real-world band, and as a bonus, it even specifically uses an actual album cover for that band-ish. Jonathan,
I was like, I have a bone to pick with you. It's not the official album cover. But
what? Oh, is it not?
Technically not. But,
oh, well, there you go.
Yeah,
anyway, point being, I set people out on a mission to find this. Did anybody find it?
We did get an answer as of recording, and we are recording a little bit early this week, but we did get an answer from
and you said
Murph,
and then you said you found it as well, yeah?
I found it as well, and when I tell you, I was so delighted when I found it, because one, it's a band I like, and two, when you said on last week's show, I asked, is it a band that still exists? Because in my head, for some reason, I went to Queen, and then you were like, they're actively touring, and my brain went, is it the Foo Fighters? And it is. It's Foo Fighters.
That is correct. It is the Foo Fighters. there is a poster. You can see it for yourself. There's a poster in a couple different spots, but mainly if you go to the station outskirts, and it's kind of like, it's really out of the way. You go to the front right corner of the screen, as if that makes sense, as close to the camera and to the right as you can walk. There are two kind of torn up posters on the fence in front of your character, so it's like really not in a place you would easily see it, that says Foo Fighters, and it has a really not degraded, what's the word, it's like it's like they put it through a filter to make it look like not actually a photo.
It's like really smudged looking. Yeah. Like adjacent to almost, but yeah.
Of not the, I guess you're right, not the actual album art, but the art of an album called One by One, right?
Yeah, I'm looking it up, and it was apparently used as a double-sided promo poster. I think it might have been either a vinyl release used it or like a special edition single release. Murph had mentioned they are in Australia, I believe. They were like, this was them promoting the album One by One, which I believe is like a heart is the main cover. But like, that's not the album in Australia. And yeah.
And I looked it up, and One by One came out in 2002. So this poster being tattered by 2009 would make sense.
Makes a lot of sense, yeah.
Yeah. It's such a... I just don't, like... That's the type of thing where I'm like, shouldn't someone take legal action? Isn't that actionable?
I mean, they're touring, they're busy. The bands have a lot to do. So, like, they're, maybe they're not looking. And granted, it is... So, the way I found it, I don't know if there's another location, but it's like you have to come as close as you can toward the camera. And the, like, chain link fence essentially shows up. And
again, it is a... like, you could say it was an homage to that poster. It's not exactly their faces in it. And the Foo Fighters is technically torn, so it doesn't literally say Foo Fighters. It says, like, ooh, fi, and then the last letters are obscured. So technically, I guess you could make a case. It's probably just not worth pursuing, and it's a cute little reference.
It's the Goof Biters, everyone's favorite band.
Exactly.
It was so funny to see because I literally was about to say, and I kind of wish I did just to have seen your reaction. I was going to say, is it the Foo Fighters? Not having seen it in game. I just was like, they're touring because I get a lot of their stuff on Instagram. So I was like, is it them?
Yeah. So there you go. A band from a million years ago, because we're old now, still touring.
They are dad rock now. Like,
yeah, they are.
They're one of the biggest bands in the world, I guess, like rock wise, but they are dad rock. It's so strange.
All love to the Foo Fighters. No hate for the Foo Fighters here. Dave Grohl seems, by all accounts, a good dude. And Dave Grohl or anyone related to the band, if you're a Persona fan, hit us up.
Please. When I came out to San Francisco, their latest album was just like on, I think Wasting Light was just on rotation for me all the time. I couldn't stop listening to it. Great band. Anyway. Moving on from there, because I could just talk about Foo Fighters all day, we will talk about Persona. And I do want to talk about a couple other things, just top of mind before we get into the show. One, I know we promised last week we would talk about Miyamoto this week.
We goofed it.
Because, as I believe was also pointed out in the Patreon, and as I noticed while playing, you can't hang out with Miyamoto this week. Because I believe we're so close to exams. A lot of these school hangouts are not available because everyone's rightly busy. So we didn't want to do that. We didn't think it would be fair. Not just because I didn't complete it, even though I have before, but just to make sure everyone out there gets a chance. So probably the next week that we have full free time in the school, we'll probably discuss it then.
So it'll be a little bit, but that's fine.
It'll work out. We'll have plenty to talk about in between. And then I also want to mention, one, as we have mentioned before, and as you'll know from this week, exams are coming up next week. So we absolutely want to take the extra time we will have next week to do a larger Q&A section. So please, everyone over at the Patreon, continue to submit your questions. There will be a call out as always, but, anything wide ranging about the game so far, please throw in. We'll probably have some fun talking through it all.
Yeah.
Anyway, and then just to wrap up from there from last week, Tom, you had asked, like, what happens if you do take Junpei and Akihiko in, what sort of the differences if you don't take the party that you and I both took in to the Love Hotel. We got a few different answers. Kirsten, I want to mention this one from YouTube, wrote in, "Re the love scene, I went in with Junpei and Akihiko. If you ask them how things went for them, Akihiko seems a bit distraught and doesn't want to talk about it, while Junpei doesn't seem too bothered. I never put two and two together with that and what happened with Yukari, but is now belatedly hilarious. Unfortunately, I can't find any footage on YouTube to confirm." They also had a question that I think will be good to hold for next week. But Dexter also chose Junpei instead of Akihiko, so Junpei and Mitsuru. But it sounds like you get the same responses that way as well. And Goro Akechi also mentioned Junpei and Akihiko is what they go with in the manga adaptation. Anyway, moving on from there, we do actually have this week to talk about. We're probably going to fly through the first couple of days because a lot of the story stuff is toward the end. But yes, we are covering the days of July 8th through July 13th, which includes a lot of free time as well as some big story stuff and teases along the way.
Stuff is happening. I'm so excited that stuff is happening.
Again, it's one of those funny things where like you and I have talked about a lot, but like this game, it does ramp up really quickly at the beginning and then it has these stops and starts. But when it starts, it goes. And it's like, here's a bunch of stuff. And we'll get there.
Yeah, I'm really excited to talk about some of this stuff.
Me too. But before we get there, we do have some free time days to get through, though there are teases throughout. So we'll start with July 8th, which opens up in the morning. I believe there's a conversation going on about like going on vacation among some of the students and just sort of a reminder that finals are on Tuesday, kind of just setting up the cadence of, as we'll learn, vacation opportunities and finals coming up.
Yeah.
Not much there.
It's just sort of, I mean, I guess I hadn't really processed it until this point that it's also summer vacation, right? Like finals is different than midterms. So yeah. Yeah.
And then we'll see what happens a little bit later with that. But before we get there, we also have a question about comma splices come up. Everyone's favorite.
Boy, this was stressful. I gotta say, as my profession is literally editor, if I hadn't gotten this one right, I would have been pretty embarrassed.
Yep. Yeah. On my first playthrough, I was like, no, I am getting this one right. I am not looking.
Yeah.
It would have been rough. I assume you did.
I did, yes.
Good. Just to make sure you're not feeling too bad about yourself.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then you get free time. So what did you do?
I hung out with Maiko today. I got a potion. I drank the potion. And then since it's leading up to finals, nobody is available in the school. So this was a fun week of hanging out with people I generally don't take the time to hang out with.
Nice.
Yeah, so I hung out with Maiko and got her finally to rank 2.
I was going to ask, that was probably, I think I hung out with them later this week and it was maybe rank 3, maybe. So yeah, I'm in a similar boat with you. Nope, it was that day. I didn't look at my notes quick enough. I hung out with Maiko and got her to rank 3. Which I will mention just for your sake and as a tip for people, this might be another one where it unlocks another confidant.
Right. So, I saw a bit of that this week.
Yeah. Worth going through. I also, and I think maybe we can discuss these next week because we didn't really end up, I think, discussing them too much, but I took Elizabeth out to Iwatodai Station.
Yeah, me too. Well, I did that tomorrow in the game. Yeah, I did that tomorrow in the game.
Yeah, depending on how this week goes, I feel like we'll have enough to talk about, but if we don't, we can talk about it at the end, but otherwise we can jump to that at next week's episode. But yeah, it
might have even been a couple days later.
Oh.
I don't know when I did it. Now I'm looking at my notes and I'm like, oh, I don't actually know when I took her out. Anyway.
She's just standing there sadly, all alone, waiting.
Yeah.
Anyway, as you pointed out, it is exams next week, so we are in the place of not having nearly as many confidants to go around. A good excuse to jump into some that we haven't too much lately. But I will say, I think it also shows the fact of, hey, when you have those school confidants available, it does matter to focus on them.
Right. Because there's going to be a whole summer vacation, right, without them, is what I assume.
Who's to say? Summer vacation would never come up in a game like this. You and I both know that. Moving on from there. So yeah, I hung out with Maiko. You get home that evening and Yukari says she has to talk to Fuka, so there's no Tartarus for the evening.
Right.
And then I believe Fuka also asks if anything happened between you and Yukari. Yukari at this point apologizes for hitting you, but reasonable. I mean, it was an awful situation for them to be thrust into, so like I understand her reaction wholeheartedly.
Sure.
But yeah, anyway, that little conversation happens, and then you get more free time. So what did you do?
Well, so part of it is I talked to everyone, and Junpei has now transitioned this week from just sort of bitter about you being the leader to being a full-on jerk about it.
Yeah.
Just throwing mad shade at you every time you talk to him.
He's
but
not
then
happy.
Then I worked at the cafe because I didn't know what else to do. And I worked at the cafe, and I got courage up to 5.
Wow.
Yeah,
Nice. Look at you. That's your first 5? Or did
That's
you
my
have...
first 5.
Congratulations.
Thank
Who can you talk to now?
Fuka.
Yes.
I can hang out with Fuka now.
But not now, because we have exams.
No, I can hang out with Fuka in 2 weeks.
In 7 months.
Yeah.
But no. Well, congratulations to you. We had a synchronous day, but not stat-wise, but I also worked at the cafe. So
Nice.
yeah, it was a quiet night.
Yeah.
Moving on from there, July 9th, you have some kids mentioning the school was rebuilt after an explosion. Oh, that little nugget comes up again. But that wasn't the only reason. A lot of kids stopped coming, so they wanted a clean slate. They're kind of hypothesizing about what happened with Geoukkan High and all of that. So you're getting a little bit of the groundwork being laid for, no pun intended, for stuff to come later this week.
Yeah.
It's funny to feel like I need to hide it, even though we're going to talk about it within this episode. But
Yeah. A
who
lot
knows?
of stuff gets revealed this episode.
Exactly. Maybe there's someone out there who listens to the show every day. So they listen on the day we talk about that day. So they listen to the show in 2-minute increments.
Once again, if you're that person, please let me know.
Yes, please let us know so I can just check in on you. Anyway, moving on from there, we get a question about farmers in class.
Yeah, the samurai teacher starts getting very excited because we're starting to actually get to samurai stuff.
Yes. Yeah,
And,
I love how one-minded he is about it. It's so great.
It's really good.
And then is this where, so more Elizabeth requests pop up after this?
Yes, and I'm furious about it.
Go for it. Tell me why.
So more requests show up. The requests this time are interesting because there's a lot more sort of, what's the right way to put it? Abstract quests. And I know there were a couple of these last time they added new requests, but this time there's one that's like, I want to feel like I've gone to the beach. There's a cat somewhere that's hungry. Go feed it for 4 days. You know, like there's stuff like that. And one of them, Jonathan.
Tell me more.
Is to give away your chilled taiyaki.
Yeah.
So this game makes you wait and jump through hoops to get chilled taiyaki, and then the moment it gives you chilled taiyaki, it's immediately like, no, give that to somebody else. And if you ate it in the meantime, it punishes you for having done so.
Mm-hmm.
It is the cruelest thing Persona 3 has done. This is meaner than insta-kill attacks.
This has left you in shambles.
I'm broken by this revelation.
That is so... It's funny because there's another quest here that bugs me. It's not that one because I had it because I didn't use it. And it's so funny to me because I just thought of it as, man, this running goof is really well thought out. The fact that the taiyaki is like you and Charlie Brown with the football.
Yeah, it's really good, to be clear. It is exceptionally funny.
This reaction is, yeah, exactly what it should be.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, my condolences to you for your loss. I assume you gave her the taiyaki.
It doesn't give you a choice.
Mm-hmm.
If you have it in your inventory, it just says, oh, you already have that item. Goodbye, let me take it. And you're like, what? But it's painful.
Well, hopefully the fridge still works in the coming weeks. Maybe there'll be room.
Not for another 3 weeks.
It's going to be rough. We'll get there. I believe in us. But no, to your point, there's also the feed the cat mission.
Yes.
Which I do like the concept of this one. It is obviously very simplistic. I assume maybe you started doing it today. I don't know if you did, but I did.
I think I started doing it either today or tomorrow. I was done with it by the end of the week.
Yeah, so you go to start feeding a cat you may have run into before, I think is fair enough to say for people. There's one here. Did you do as many requests as you could, or did you just kind of leave it there?
I think I did all of the ones I could this week.
Did
or
you
at
get
least minus the make a specific persona with a specific thing sort of stuff.
Yeah. So you got the CD.
What is the CD?
She wants to hear like the sounds of Geoukkan High.
No, I didn't do that one yet.
I didn't do this one my whole first campaign because I refused to look it up. And I looked it up. And I really don't know how to feel about it, and I don't want to like say anything because I maybe want to give you some time to work through it. But
okay, that's good to know because I was just I was just following where are the exclamation point markers on the map and like, can I just go get something? Yeah. So knowing that there is something involved with this one is enough, right?
That's fair. Yeah.
I'll look around.
You do also have free time. You can do as many of those quests as you can, but that doesn't eat up your free time. You have the afternoon. So what did you do?
In the afternoon, I wasted time with the old couple is the right way to put it. I couldn't go hang out with Maiko. I couldn't get a level up with the old couple yet. I did not want to talk to Suimitsu, so I went and just spent time with the old couple to get them ready for another level up.
That's fair. I am at a stalled point with them as well, so I did go hang out with Suimitsu to get him up to rank 2, just because it seemed like a use of time.
It is technically a use of time, yes.
It is indeed. Moving on from there, in the evening, you get a text from the suspicious man at the club.
Yeah, funny how he got your number.
Yeah, definitely nothing to worry about here.
Just people selling your data all over the place. It's really gotten out of hand.
What a wild time 2009 was. It's a good thing we solved all those issues.
Yeah.
Anyway, you get a text from him. What's funny is that you get a text from him, and then I didn't write down what it does, but I think you just go to get another URL, right?
Yeah, he's got a URL for, it's like a defense security training website.
Ironic.
And I used that URL later, so we can talk about it then.
Cool. I did the task of the request of getting the Christmas star, quote unquote, from Fuka.
Right. The poinsettia.
Yes.
Which, fun fact, tangent, that dude was a terrible person, and there's a campaign to rename poinsettias to not be poinsettias and to use their use their actual, like, native name.
Oh, wow, I had no idea.
It's something Poinsett was his name. He was, like, real bad. Like, you can look it up yourself, but, man, he did a lot of crimes.
Tom, you're saying a man in history did a bad thing?
I know. It was definitely some like it was not good. We should not call them poinsettias. It's very true. God. So I thought it was funny to see that there.
That's so weird. Also, this is unrelated to him, but they're very poisonous for dogs, I believe.
I think so. Yeah.
Which is crazy because I had them around the house every Christmas as a kid, and we had a dog, and I'm like, she was just a very good dog to never eat those plants. Why did we have them? But anyway. You have free time that evening. So what did you do?
Yes, in my notes specifically said I studied with mom and dad.
Yeah, that's the feeling.
So there's the Mitsuru and Akihiko study session where Akihiko will tell you that the best way to study is to reward yourself between study questions with training and exercise. And Mitsuru has to point out to him that training is not a reward for most people.
Which, what's really funny is my reaction at this point in my life was like, honestly, he's not wrong, though. Like,
probably a pretty good way to keep your energy up.
Yeah, it's pretty smart. It's a neat way to trick yourself into it. I was doing something somewhat different where, like, at a point in my life where I was binging too much TV, I think during the pandemic, I was like, okay, every episode of the show, I have to do 10 push-ups. or like 10
Right.
sit-ups. And it is like a
there's-
way to get you into it.
There's good things to do with that too, with games where, like, if you're playing Elden Ring or something, every time you die, you have to do 10 push-ups. I did that briefly in college for League of Legends when I was really into League of Legends. You just, like, would do exercises during your entire respawn timer. It's not, like, it's not bad motivation.
No, not at all. I did, when I was streaming Demon Souls, I had a reward that was make me do pull-ups at any point. And there was one night people redeemed like 80 pull-ups, and I was in so much pain.
God.
I had to spread them out. I did like a 6-hour stream and just like spread them out because I'm like, this is too much for me, guys.
I can do like 4 pull-ups total.
There was a time, and this is to show you how bad the pandemic was for my health, there was a time where I could do like 30 in a row. Yeah.
That's like
trying to get back there, but
oh my God.
Anyway, that's a story for another time. I did the same.
Ripped, y'all.
It was, and to think, that's what 25 years of body dysmorphia will do to a guy. Anyway, not to reflect on my high school experience, let's reflect on this high school experience. Yes, I did the study session as well. I don't know if you remember what you asked about, because you have the option of like topics. I asked about kanji, but
I think I asked about grammar or something, or math. I don't remember.
Yeah. Mostly for me, it just ended up with Akihiko just like wants to go train. That seems to be the main preoccupation. Yeah. It's fun. I like these study sessions. They're really cute.
Yeah. They continue to be very fun.
Yes. Moving on from there, July 10th, I think we go straight into class, and we get the Magic of Medieval Europe from Edogawa.
Yep. Which I hit play on and then went and got some water.
And then you had to go make a meal. And then
yeah. No, it was I continue to not completely ignore these because I do enjoy them. I think they're funny, but skim them, go quickly through them.
I get that. And then because of that, though, which obviously you can cheat this a little bit, he does have a question about what he asked about, which was regarding Kabbalah.
Yeah, which I actually just knew the answer to.
I knew it, but mostly because of like the mid-2000s celebrity craze, which is not like actually Kabbalah. Sure. It was slightly different. I actually read into it because I was like, this is the only reason I know that word. Why did it matter to Britney Spears and like all these other pop stars in the mid-2000s? Let me look it up.
Yeah.
Anyway. So that all happens. You get all that info. And then I wrote down that I returned the Christmas star, so I must not have gone back to Elizabeth the night before. And then what did you do in the afternoon free time?
I hung out with the old couple. I got them to rank 6.
Nice.
So I was already a little deeper into that one.
Yeah, you're pretty far in. Okay.
Because remember, I was prioritizing them at the very beginning before I realized I maybe shouldn't.
I did the same thing on my first run. They're really endearing. It's hard not to.
Yeah, they're fun. It's fun to be back with them.
Yeah. I was at Knowledge 4 already, but I was like, can I get myself to 5 this week? So I'm trying. I'll tell you if I make it there at the end. We'll find out. But I spent $10,000 and I got 2 notes of knowledge.
Oh, no.
And I tried a couple times and I kept getting 2, so I just stopped.
Oh, that's tragic.
Anyway, moving on from there, you get to the evening back at the dorm. You'll learn of your options. There is another study session. However, Junpei refuses to study. So if you want to, it is just with Yukari and Fuka.
Because he's being a jerk.
Yeah.
Well, I did that.
Same.
And it's a very cute little scene of Fuka borrowing the other girl's notes because the other girl wants to help, but then she has really bad notes, so they end up studying by filling in her notes, which is probably not like a bad way to study. That is actually probably a pretty decent method.
This whole week I was like, I think these are pretty good study tips, actually.
Yeah.
This isn't a bad workflow. But yeah, it's a cute scene. I like that they keep bringing in, we'll see it again, or no, we saw it after the like full moon is what I meant to say, when Fuka, joins the group. I like that this relationship kind of keeps perpetuating in the background as like a friendship of Fuka's that is just happening as we go on.
Yeah.
It's nice.
Yeah.
Anyway, I did the same thing, and then the night's over. So moving on from there, July 11th. Junpei is just real dejected, talking to you in the morning.
Yeah, the vibe of this conversation is a little hard to parse, but it is basically like when you run into someone you really don't want to talk to, and then you're like have to make small talk with them.
Yeah,
is sort of the attitude he's throwing your way.
Yeah, no, for sure. And we get a scene, I think, later this week that kind of keys into unlocking a little bit of these reactions and such, but we'll get there. We get a question from Mr. Ono on the katana.
Another samurai class, like 2 days after the last one or whatever.
Yeah. Sonata texts after school, mentions that Ikutsuki is coming to the dorm. So we have to wait for that. But before we get there, you have free time. So what'd you do?
Yeah, I hung out with Maiko again, got her to rank 3. I'm really enjoying this storyline. You're learning more at this point about who she is and what her deal is, but also just generally she's a fun character and they're enjoyable scenes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I got there a couple days before you, and yeah, I think the early goings are interesting to give you insight into her life. It's, I think, a very obviously unique dynamic because a lot of the people you're talking to are your age, and this is one of the youngest people you're speaking with and having one of these bonds, and she is having a different sort of situation in life.
That we talked during the bonus episode last month about how I need to sneeze. Oh no.
Is another one happening?
No. That was just a.
I am unfortunately, we're lucky because I don't sneeze during these shows, but I am notorious. It's like a family inheritance thing. My grandpa would do this growing up. I sneeze like 4 or 5 times in a row. So
yeah, I usually get 2 minimum. The fact that this was 1. Anyway, what were you saying? Oh yeah, we talked about on a bonus. Yeah, we talked about on a bonus episode about how Shinji. When we were talking about each of the confidant ranks. That's his name, right? Shinji Oda?
Yeah, I believe so. I'll look that up, but yeah.
The gun kid in Persona 5. How we were both sort of, you can subscribe to the Patreon and listen to the full episode if you want, but basically we were talking about how the idea of having a younger kid that you are mentoring, looking after, being friends with to some extent is like a cool concept, but then the execution of it in that case was sort of not very successful fully. Even though it was an interesting idea, this relationship with Maiko feels more successful to me. It feels more like a big brother sort of vibe to it that I think is working, and I like the character more, and I'm just excited to see more about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Shinya Oda.
Shinya, thank you. Shinji is the
the person we might see this week. Shinya Oda, no disrespect to the king, as he's known, of course. Oh, Tom, did you get it? You got the spider?
Yeah, I did. I got another spider.
Congratulations. We should have a spider count in the corner.
It's not 2 right now.
Anyway, where were we? Oh, it was free time. So you hung out with
that
Maiko.
Sneeze. We were on a roll, and that sneeze just fully derailed everything.
I fed the cat again. And I then went to the shrine again, and I got 3 knowledge exclamations.
Nice. So you're pumping money into that.
I'm flush with cash. What am I going to do? I really wanted that 5. I really wanted to get to that 5. Anyway, story time. We get back to the dorm that evening.
Oh, yes.
You cut into the group giving Ikutsuki a summary of the 7th.
Right.
And he called this meeting because, hold on, sir, Yukari cuts him off in dramatic fashion. She is basically feeling like she and all of us to an extent have been dragged along, but she finally wants answers, as we know that is something that has been an undercurrent for her for the past few weeks. So she asks Mitsuru what she's been hiding, because she clearly feels that something is up. And that, like, Mitsuru acts like she doesn't know anything, but clearly there's a connection here going on that's deeper that she wants to know about. Even Fuka is kind of surprised by this. And Yukari asks if she knows about the explosion that happened all those years back, and Mitsuru admits that she does. Goes back into things. Yukari is talking about how there's all these unexplained absences from back then. It's clearly a coincidence. She dug up more information on the school records, and those kids actually collapsed and had to be sent to the hospital, like the girl who bullied Fuka. She demands an answer for those days, and we learned that the, especially knowing the Kirijo group built the school. Mitsuru says she wasn't trying to hide anything, and Akutsuki tries to comfort her all about this, which also clearly implies that he knows the wider history here as well. And then Mitsuru says she'll tell us everything. She mentions that shadows can affect time and space. Is that 3?
Spider counts at 3. Continue.
Mentioned the shadows can affect time and space. So now we're in Doctor Who territory. And kind of posits.
Which we already kind of knew because of the Dark Hour and the Tartarus only existing or whatever, yada, yada.
Exactly. It makes sense.
It's somewhat.
Yeah. This is just someone clearly stating that as like a known theory.
Yeah.
And then she posits, like, what if we could use them to our advantage and give us, incredible power? So 14 years ago. Yes.
Which, real quick.
Yeah.
I, at first, was like, oh no, Mitsuru's going batty. She wants to do this. But really, she's positing that question because that's what the people in the past thought, right? And now she knows that was not a good idea.
Yes, yeah. So she recounts how, and forgive me for mispronunciation if I do, but Koetsu Kirijo, her grandfather, explored that line of thinking. Then we get cool anime cutscene cutback. We dip into the past here. We know that he was obsessed with shadows, wanted to create something extraordinary as a result of all this. So he assembled a research team to collect shadows and study them. 10 years ago, during the final stage of that project, there was an accident and all of it failed. They lost control of the shadows, power, and they changed the world essentially in an explosion that cast them out into the ether. That's how Tartarus and the Dark Hour were born.
Yes. Now.
Yes.
Loved this cutscene. Love that we're actually getting answers. This whole week feels like the game is really starting to kick off in terms of the main storyline, which I'm excited about. Glad that the Mitsuru Yukari beef is out in the open. And we don't really have to go into the detail, like the nitty-gritty of this, but Mitsuru seems to feel, every time you talk to her after this and kind of all your interactions, she seems like she really didn't mean anything bad by not telling you, right? She feels genuinely bad that you feel deceived. She just left stuff out and realized now that she shouldn't have, which, I like all of that's going on. My wife pointed something out that I now can't stop thinking about.
Go for it.
If the Dark Hour didn't exist, how are they collecting shadows?
I had a similar thought. Yeah, were they just running rampant?
Like they found that shadows existed as a thing and started collecting them separately?
Maybe they were just like out, because it is, I'm not mistaken in my notes, they say this is how the Dark Hour was born, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know either. I don't know where in the world betwixt and between they met up with them. It's a good point. I was going to say, just to your point, to jump a little ahead this evening, after this whole conversation, because you do get free time.
Yeah.
Which is great. You can go to Akutsuki and ask him for more information.
Oh, yeah. I want to talk about some of that, too.
And just to bring in there, because I think one of the things he mentioned there is very specifically about Mitsuru. And to your point of, like, her...
Yes.
I just think it's a good point to bring up here, because you were saying of, like, how the reaction that she has and kind of the emotionality of it is, like, you learn that she was subject to experiments on her persona for many years. Like,
yeah, messed up.
The evoker and all this sort of stuff wouldn't exist were it not for her being willing to let them do that. And she agreed to it all, is the way he phrases it. Like, she willingly said, yes, you can experiment on my persona to figure this out.
Seemingly to make up for the wrongs of her family or whatever.
Yes, yeah. So anyway, they get a little bit more just into the fallout of that event. So the shadows split out, the large ones dispersed around the world. Those are the big ones we've encountered. They ask about why the school turned into Tartarus, because that's where the Kirijo group was experimenting. They owned the land.
Wild.
They could do as they please here, so they conducted the experiments at Geoukkan.
Seems irresponsible to me.
Just a little bit. Yeah, I assume there's some laws against it, but Yukari is, very upset about this, that we were dragged in to clean up Mitsuru's grandpa's mess. She's angry that Mitsuru and Sonata lied to us. He says they had their reasons, but shadows can only be defeated by persona users. So Mitsuru is kind of like she didn't have a choice either in all this.
Right.
And that ties in a little bit later. Ikutsuki says those in the past are to blame and they're dead. So none of us deserve the burden thrust upon us in this moment. No one knows why the shadows suddenly returned after 10 years, but we have a chance to actually stop them. The 12 shadows are the cause of everything, he tells us. If we defeat them, the Dark Hour and Tartarus will disappear, and there's evidence to support that. So our true battle begins in doing so. There's still a lot of mystery, but that's what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all good stuff, and it's also really interesting because it's all nuanced enough that you can see Mitsuru and Yukari's sides well enough, right? Like, if this is this big world-threatening thing, the people who are persona users do sort of have an obligation to be able to do something about it if they're the only ones who could. But then also at the same time, it really does feel like Mitsuru's family created a giant mess, and now she's essentially duped a bunch of kids into playing superhero to clean up that mess, right? And I don't think her intentions were malicious as far as we can tell right now, but it does sort of, it's understandable why Yukari is upset by this. And I like that this is not such a cut and dry thing in either direction. I like this backstory. I like finding out about a lot of this stuff, because every time, I was like, who are these people that is saying yada yada yada? Now we know, who Ikutsuki is working with and why they have knowledge of this stuff. And this is sort of what I've been missing in a big way in the main story so far.
Yeah, I think obviously to your point, we don't learn everything, but we learn so much here that I think really propels you forward when it feels like it might have been lacking.
And also we just, like, a lot of the tension breaks on stuff. Like, the Yukari stuff was really interesting, but it was going on for a while, and I was waiting for that tension to break, and I'm glad it did. Yeah.
And to your point, I think I'm totally with you in the sense of none of this, learning this, invalidates Yukari's feeling upset by being duped. No. But at the same time, also, and it's not trying to let Mitsuru off the hook, but it is pointing to the reality that, like, hey, here is a kid who was put into this unimaginable position because of her family, and she is just trying to do what she thinks is right. And she thought withholding some of this scary truth would help ease the burden of bringing them into the loop, which, again, to your point, doesn't excuse it, but makes it a very understandable choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all good. I'm very happy that all of this happened.
I know I did like a bunch of the lore dumping recap. So any other thoughts about that before we move on to the other extra like Ikutsuki stuff at the end?
No, the cutscene was cool. It was cool to see all the like high tech lab equipment, right? And the big old explosion, and it's great to, the nitpicking about why were there shadows aside. It's cool to. And there's still mystery. We don't know why they've come back now. I don't know. I'm hooked.
Well, I'm glad, because then we get even more info.
Yes.
We get even more info for those who are curious. If you speak to Ikutsuki, if you don't, you're really missing out.
Yeah, it seems wild that they left some of that stuff, like especially the Mitsuru getting experimented on stuff into this.
It's a really big factor, and I think learning that gives more nuance to all of her decision making. I think it's really important to learn all that. So if you missed all this, maybe we'll recap some of it, but maybe also go hunt out the exact conversations, because you also learn that over 50 people were injured. The media blamed the Karijo group, obviously, and singled out one researcher in particular as the main culprit. He was a victim too of this whole situation, is how kind of Akutsuki frames it, and the actual fault wasn't totally clear, but the public needed a straw man. They needed someone to shout at and feel vindicated that they got the guy who did it.
Right.
And so you learn about that a little bit. What else do you learn about? Oh, Sanada joining the group in middle school.
Right.
As well.
Yeah, Mitsuru and Akihiko have known each other for a while.
Yes. And also a third member. But yeah, you learn all about that and just get a little bit more flavor and detail to all this information. Yep. You also get a really upset Junpei if you speak to him.
Yeah.
He is
mad.
He is real angry this night about you being a great leader. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, he's not happy.
It's to the point where even Fuka is like, hey man, chill?
Yeah. Yeah. It's not gone unnoticed by the rest of the group.
Yeah.
But then you have free time, so what did you do?
I hung out with Tanaka.
What a perfect way to cap a very important evening.
Yeah. He taught me about stocks.
Excellent use of the night. I played academics at the arcade.
Okay, cool.
Trying to get that 5.
Yeah.
Moving on from there, July 12th. Jumping right back into more story in the morning, we get a scene between Aragaki and Akihiko in a back alley.
Yeah, this is this series of conversations, right? Or series of scenes where it's basically like one after another, each member of the group sort of reckoning with stuff that had just happened or talking about it with other people. It's
a really interesting use of like montage in a game.
Yeah, it is.
That I really appreciate. I don't think you see that a ton in this way at this point in the game. And I really dig the way it's introduced here. So the first one, it's probably one of the longer scenes, but you got the scene between the two of them. Akihiko comes up to Aragaki in this alleyway, checking up on him, mentions that it's almost been 14 years since the three of them met at the orphanage.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of sad stories, so of course there should be an orphanage somewhere in those sad stories.
Of course.
He talks about how they would run around like they had all the time in the world. Aragaki tells him he go get sappy with his other pals. He has no use for this, cloying sweetness in his life. Tells Akihiko that he normally just charges ahead like a fool. He's never been good at hiding things. And Akihiko says, like, we know how to get rid of Tartarus now. Like, he's trying to get him involved and is like, we finally have an understanding, some motive, some movement here. And all he's cared about, Aragaki tells him, is getting stronger. That's all Akihiko has ever cared about.
Though the prospect of being able to remove the dark hour is, like, that is the one thing that sort of perks him up, right? That
yes.
He sort of reacts a little more like, oh, this is interesting, too.
Yeah.
It also is an interesting relationship now that we know it, because basically it explains a lot, because basically if they met in an orphanage, they're basically brothers, right? They're basically adopted brothers who have known each other for most of their lives at this point.
You got them talking about having a reason for fighting and all of that sort of stuff. And, Aragaki says, if you don't have one, you can just quit. Akihiko is kind of like, I can't believe I'm the one who's getting lectured, because he came to lecture him, and then leaves.
Right.
And then Aragaki says to himself, he hasn't really changed, clearly.
Yeah.
Moving on from there, we get the scene with Fuka in her room with Mitsuru. Mitsuru kind of comes in almost an apologetic way and hopes that Fuka isn't too mad, especially because she brings up that Fuka got all that information. Like, she clearly knows she's the one behind Yukari's info. And Mitsuru isn't mad. She wants a favor because she knows Fuka's that good and wants her to hack into the Karijo group database using her login information so that Fuka isn't put in a place of getting in trouble, and hack in and get as much info as she can. She just wants to be able to really start digging in here and make amends for what's been going on. She also asks Fuka if she's resentful about all these revelations. And again, learning a little bit about sad backstories, Fuka's like, no, I'd rather be here than at home. talking about the relationship with her parents. Her whole family essentially have become doctors except her parents, and they're so a little like resentful about that and treat her poorly as a result. So she's like, I'd rather be here around people who like me and treat me well.
Yeah, I love this conversation, both because we learned about Fuka a little more, but also because it shows that Mitsuru not only didn't mean to harm people by hiding stuff, Yukari bringing it up actually is making her start to question how much faith she has in the institutions that she's working with and saying, you know what, I need to even learn more than I know. I want the truth from these people that, I knew they were involved, but now I want to know everything because I want to make sure I have the full picture of it. And that's cool that Yukari's, sort of caused this reaction from Mitsuru. She didn't react poorly. She actually said, okay, what could I be doing to be better?
Yes, yeah. When put on the spot, she didn't run away or get double down and be grumpy about it or resentful. She's like,
she didn't pull a Junpei.
And speaking of, Junpei is the next scene where we see him very conflicted. He doesn't want to. Yeah,
this is a sad scene.
And I think this really unlocks a little bit of an understanding. And again, I don't think excuses the behavior, but you really start to understand, I think, where Junpei's head is at and has been all this time, where he doesn't want to lose his persona, even though it would mean a good thing happened by losing the persona because it meant this threat would be gone. I like that he's having this conversation with himself also outside the steps of the movie theater. Yeah. It's just a funny place. But anyway, he hears kids talking about the heat and growing up, and he says his problem is him. Fighting is just all he's ever been good at. Without that, he's nothing, he says to himself. He can't even fight well compared to us, so he feels bad that the one thing he's good at, he's not even that good at. Nothing he does is good enough to him. And yeah, I think what you're seeing here is someone who deeply has like self-resentment issues and internalized hatred and all these things cropping up in a really, unfortunately, debilitating way here.
Yeah, it's super sad. Like you said, you really do get a better understanding of who he is and what is motivating him, both positively and negatively. And yeah, it's very sad because I think it's important that they do go out of their way to make sure you realize that he knows the dark hour is bad and he wants to get rid of it. He's just sort of very like, well, what am I without it? What am I if I don't have that power? I'm nothing. And that's so tragic.
Yeah, you're really starting to see, I think, and again, to the point of the other conversations, I don't think it is letting him off the hook for the way he's acted. It is in no way saying it's okay that he's been pushing away his friends like this, but it is a very clear understanding, I think, of like A equals B here, of like why he's acting that way. It becomes very clear here. Moving on from there, we get a scene with Yukari in her room. She says she's only ever right about the worst things in life, and she got a letter from her dad that she's reminiscing about from last spring, which we get read aloud, and I think I wrote as much of it as I could, but just kind of encapsulated. He's writing to his family in 10 years. This is a letter that is being put in a time capsule at the Moonlight Bridge to be opened in 10 years. He says he knows his daughter at that time. Yukari has been sad because he works late as head researcher at the Kirijo group. He will be starting on a big project soon, but nothing is more important to him than her and her mother. He hopes she's enjoying life, looking to the future with wonder, and hopes she's happy on March 6th, 2000.
This is a little on the nose. It's really cool. I'm interested in this connection, but it's a little bit heavy-handed that they're like, oh boy, 10 years ago, I'm going off to be the head researcher on a new unnamed project. And Yukari clearly knows nothing and is also not putting together the pieces of like, wait, my dad went to be a head researcher at the Kirijo group exactly at the same time right before this big thing that we've just been talking exhaustively about happened. I'm sure there's no connection there. Like it was just a little, it's one of those anime things where you're just like, you as a viewer look at it and go like, oh, I understand what's happening here.
Yes.
Way before the characters do.
Yeah, it is. You're right. It is not uncommon for the genre or the influences at play here. Very clearly, I think there is these very, very self-explanatory scenes of, yes, I get what's going on here. It is sad. It is definitely.
Yes, the connection and everything it's all a very good scene with her. I'm just complaining about sort of the meta of it. But
no, totally.
I like this. Again, similar to the other characters in the other scenes, I like getting more information about Yukari and who she is and her family dynamic, what motivates her, right? I think this is a really interesting thing for her to have felt, especially the timing of if she only like just got this letter semi-recently within the last year or whatever. That's really heartbreaking too. It just is it's good. It's all good. It's just I'm just being hyperbolic.
No, but it is very much a trope of the genre to do that in a scene.
Yeah, and especially after the Akutsuki thing, obviously you can play poker face or whatever, but for him to be like, one researcher got all the blame, and then have her be like, my dad was head researcher at an unnamed project, and you're like, oh, okay.
But yeah, moving on from there, also she just at the end of that scene, and what I will say is we'll get there in a sec because we do have some free time to talk through. I like that you get this montage of all the characters, but then you do also get backstory about your character at the end of this day. They are not left out of the lore dump at the end of all this. But before we get there,
and she also, the Yukari thing that we also left out was that she won't be like her mom. She won't turn her back. Like, she's got some mom problems too.
Yes, yeah. None of these kids are coming from good homes. It seems like everyone's got parent issues.
It's a little unfortunate.
Yeah. But anyway, then we do have free time. Of course, you have the Home Shopping Network.
Yes.
Which you should do because...
Yeah, because there's a request for it.
So if you didn't, go back in time and do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's an Elizabeth request there for that. Maybe some... Yeah. Oh, go for it.
This was the day that I took Elizabeth out to eat with Todai.
Cool. Maybe we'll hold it for next week because I feel like we'll have time.
Yeah, let's talk about that next week. Because then I also have a pop quiz for it. That's fun.
Excellent. I also fed the cat this afternoon, and then you have free time in the afternoon. So what did you do?
I hung out with Maya, which is a relationship I'm actually enjoying now. It has gone from weird to, oh, now I know who you are. So this is actually just like kind of interesting dynamic and not getting as weird, although it is getting a little weird. I'm wary of it still, but I'm enjoying it more. I got her up to 7.
Okay, nice. I took a break because I think I'm at 7 or 8. I took a break this week to go to the shrine once again to try to get my knowledge up, and I did not at this point.
Going hard.
Go into the evening. What did you do?
I did the security site URL thing that you can buy from the guy, and it unlocks the ambush ability that you can use in Tartarus, which is super cool. So now I can ambush shadows. Yeah,
it's I think I mentioned this very early on, but I didn't want to speak to it too much. There are some useful URLs. That is a good example of it, where don't ignore these for too long, or like I did, because I didn't use it tonight.
That's a whole game mechanic.
Yeah, it is. But you don't use it tonight anyway, so it's fine. I ate at Wakatsu to get more knowledge. I did not get up to 5.
Aww.
Anyway, moving on from there, we get the dark hour. Our boy is back. Pharos returns and mentions how he actually has things to say this time.
Yeah, and boy.
Drops a bomb on you. He mentions time has passed by so quickly since we first met, asks us how life as a persona user is going. He also
real quick, that time passing quickly thing is probably, in my headcanon at least, is because he only exists during the dark hour. So for him, it's only been like, a week or whatever.
Yeah, it's not been that long. Yeah, that's a good thought. He mentions all that, and then he's like, oh, I also remembered something. The coming of the end stems from something that happened 10 years ago. Interesting.
Yeah, we get it.
He also mentions that our parents passed away 10 years ago.
And no one is putting these pieces together.
Well, and also, to be fair, that is the first mention I think you really get of your character's backstory here.
Yes.
We have gotten intimations, I think, that like you don't have the best life, obviously, but
your parents passing
some
away
detail.
is like, oh, that's a big chunk of juice right there.
Yes, but we don't hear anything more about it because he then basically goes into just a little line about how personas are like a mirror, so a user can never really escape their true self. And he's not going to leave us alone because we're friends.
Yeah, we're buds.
And just like any friend, a friend would go, hey, remember your parents died? Anyway, goodbye. Yeah, that's great. What a friendship.
I think it's just him wanting us to put the pieces together of, you just had this conversation about a giant explosion 10 years ago that changed the fabric of reality. Maybe that has something to do with it.
But he's not going to get into detail about that. He doesn't have time.
No.
He only exists for an hour at a time. He's got to be quick, snappy with these things.
There you go.
Anyway, then you go to bed. For real. It's July 13th, the last day of our week. You hear some kids at school talking about exams coming up, which is true. Get ready. They are happening. You then get to class, and we sort of get the dual prospect that we got at the beginning of the week of exams and summer vacation. Your teacher, Miss Terauchi, mentions we should be excited for summer vacation, talks about how much fun it is. Why are we sad about exams? Like, look forward to that. You can stay awake in class and hear her talk about the dog days of summer, which I had no idea went back to a Latin phrase. I did not know. This was actually information for me.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting little fact. Sometimes they got those.
Yeah, because for me, that phrase now is just connected to Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. But anyway, have you not seen Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3?
I've seen it once, so
okay.
That
Clearly,
joke is not jumping out to me.
You didn't sob like a mess at the end of that movie twice in theaters like I did.
No, I didn't.
Anyway, moving on from there. You have free time, so what did you do?
I hung out with Maiko, got her up to rank 4.
Nice. I went back to the shrine, and I got 3 points of knowledge, and I still wasn't at 5.
Oof.
Yeah. So
Tragic.
moving on from there, you get back to the dorm in the evening, and everyone's kind of in a bummer mood.
Boy, it's so awkward. This group is dysfunctional at this point.
Yeah, well, you saw everyone go through, like, honestly, the montage of the day before would have only been more perfect had it been set to, like, an emo 2000s song.
Yeah.
But everyone's in their bummer mood. Everyone wants a break from everything. They're fantasizing about a trip. And Akutsuki makes a dramatic entrance and is like, oh, a trip, you say? What about Yakushima?
Yeah.
Which I love the timing of all that. And he's like, well, it just so happens Mitsuru Kirijo's father will be there during the break. So maybe it would be good to go there.
Hypothetically, he's someone rich and powerful who vacations at the beach.
Yes, yeah. A beach we could also all vacation at, apparently.
Right.
So he suggests we go and get a nice change of scenery. Junpei is so excited for beaches and bikinis, which everyone makes fun of him for. Kirijo hesitates about it, but Akutsuki says no father would be so upset about their daughter surprising them on vacation.
A lot of assumptions about this family dynamic.
Exactly. And so we know when the next operation will be, yada, yada. So, we're good. You have the time of your lives. She's a little unsure, but is eventually convinced by that conversation. Akutsuki isn't coming, though. He'd be turned to dust in the sun.
He's a vampire, I guess?
And Junpei has to ask if that's true. Which I love. And then afterward, we get a nice little scene tying back into some of the Night of Revelations where Yukari runs after Mitsuru to talk to her, apologizes about how she got carried away with all of that. And Mitsuru is like, no, it's okay. It's like, it makes sense. There's one person who was responsible for all this. And so, like, that's what matters. So, thank you for kind of putting me on the right path for all this, basically.
Yeah.
Maybe healing a little bit of the frustrations here, but yeah.
Yeah, it's all of this is sort of building towards, like, hey, these people need a break, and these people need to actually start liking each other as humans.
Yeah, because they're kids. They are teens. Yep. And they've just had a lot going on.
Not to mention, Beach day.
Well, we'll have to see because we have exams first. But before we get there, we do get our shopping network stuff. It all shows up.
Well, the other thing about this is that Mitsuru says that the only person who survived the accident was her father.
Yeah.
So that's another little nugget.
Well, we're hanging on to so much information now. I like how much is compacted into these 2 days.
Yeah, it's a ton.
So we get all that. You got the shopping network stuff. You then get free time, which of course is there's a group study session option, which I hope you all took because it is a group study session led by Akutsuki.
Yep. Where the vacation is on the line. Yes.
Very well, as he says. There is...
There's also a pun off.
Oh, yeah. He's the one who gathers everyone to study. I love that everyone is so uncomfortable in this scene because, like you said, vacation's on the line. They're studying with the chairman of the school next to them. And he's just hanging out, having a good time. He's just being a goofball. Junpei's worried about actually failing this one.
Junpei cares. You put a beach on the line and Junpei cares.
He cares. Well, not just the beach, very clearly, as we know. But you put that on the line for Junpei, and he ships up, shapes up, and ships out. There we go, and is ready to study. And yeah, as you said, there's a pun off going on. Junpei doesn't want to get one upped by Akutsuki in the pun department.
The funniest part of this whole scene by far is Mitsuru accidentally making a pun and then and Akutsuki's like, that's a good one. And she is mortified that she has made a pun.
Yeah. And then I love is just like the button to that scene is Yukari hates it. Yukari is just like, I just want to study. Please, everyone. It's a cute scene. It gets you some more study points. And... I didn't get to 5.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's all right. It happens.
Next time.
Yeah. But that's where it ends because, spoilers, if you did play through that scene, as you may know, it kicks you right into exams. We're going to be covering exams next week. We are specifically covering July 14th through 19th. I believe. I will double check. I didn't write the wrong dates down in my head, but I believe those are the dates. But yeah, that's the week. So just to put everything together, how are you feeling after this week?
Good. It feels like stuff's happening. Feels like we've teed up the group having a bonding moment to actually get closer together at a beach. It feels like we've learned a lot more about the characters, about what our goal is, about why that's our goal, which I think was the big thing that was missing for me, is we didn't really have a inciting incident of why. It was just sort of like, here's what we're doing. So I'm glad. I really enjoyed this. Akutsuki says feels like our real mission has started, and it's funny to say it 30 hours into the game, but it does sort of feel like, okay, we're really getting into the meat of this now, and we got 6 more of these big shadows to go.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's it is a nature of long RPGs like this where things can feel like they're kicking in a little later than you might expect. But yeah, it's a very nice, neat, I don't want to say reward, but it is to some extent of you've now gone through a few of these full moon operations. And as we pointed out, those are not the most story heavy. Despite being the big things you're leading up to, they are not necessarily always advancing the plot majorly forward. So yeah, it's nice to have a moment like this.
Indeed.
And yeah, next week, those are the correct dates. Dates July 14th through 19th. As I mentioned, we'll have exams in there. We'll have a little bit of free time, but we'll have plenty of time for questions and such. So please write in with your questions, I think, about the game in general, about just where we've gotten up to so far. Obviously, no spoilers for Tom's sake and for anyone else who's playing along. But definitely want to hear from everyone out there. Just to leave on a note from this week, we did have Dexter say, or was it Dexter or no, I had another comment from Dexter there. I'm missing where the comment is that I was going to read because I had too many tabs open. So
oh no,
Here we go. It was Francis who wrote in and said, I think this week really did Junpei dirty and made me become less invested or interested in his storyline. He is simply being a jerk, and it's hard to come back from here, especially with him when his character is less useful combat-wise. And then also mentioned the Miyamoto thing. And I very much understand that reaction. Because especially leading up to that scene with him, he is just so outright a jerk to you that it's hard to want to relate to that character at that point.
Yeah, I mean, I described him as a puppy before, and so to have him be this petty is definitely hard to see.
Yes, yeah, it's rough. But I do think that scene with him, and really all of those scenes, is such great, even if they're really on the nose, fleshing out of who each of these members are. I think it's really great to see that after such an impactful moment that the group went through. So yeah.
Yeah.
But as I mentioned, we'll have plenty of time for questions next week, so please, everyone, send them in. We will be reading some that y'all have dropped in from past weeks that we have to get to and more, so looking forward to discussing everyone's thoughts from then. But before we get there, Tom, what is your pop quiz for this week?
Well, this one is taken from a little side conversation that you may or may not have had out in the world, because after the full moon operation, there were a bunch of new ones of these all over the place that were fun to read. My question for you, Jonathan, you may have found some CD with the music of, or whatever, the sounds of, I don't know what it was, Geoukkan. I haven't found it yet.
Yeah.
But did you know that Geoukkan High School used to almost had a theme song, but then didn't? What was the name of the Geoukkan High School theme song that it almost had but didn't?
The Geoukkan Geckos Get Down Bonanza, obviously.
Dang, got it in one.
Yeah, didn't even need to wait. Just wanted to ruin it for you. No,
that's the pop quiz question.
Excellent
What was the name of the proposed but not actually implemented Geoukkan High theme song?
This is a fun one. I like this.
Yeah.
And
if you don't know the answer, I want to hear your guesses.
Oh yeah, please. If you don't know, just give a absolute out of nowhere guess, please.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I want to hear the fake ones as much as I want to hear people get it right. No offense.
Maybe more. More.
Honestly. This is an improv scenario. We want our fans to do improv with us.
Yeah.
Well, no, excellent one. If you have an answer, real or fake, or somewhere in between, you can leave those over at patreon.com/takeyourtime on the appropriate posts. You can leave them on the YouTube version of the show, which is youtube.com/Dornology. You can write into dornology@gmail.com, or you can yell at Tom and I on social media. He's at Tom R. Marks. I'm at JM Dornbush. So just throw out the answer there for us. And we'll find out who's right and who's wrong and who has the best pitch next week. But that's going to pretty much do us for this week's episode. Tom, thank you so much, as always, for joining me.
Thank you.
It was a thrill to talk through some really exciting stuff. And what better way to look forward to the future than exams? So get ready, everyone. But no, I'm looking forward to everyone's questions, some topics, some off-thread discussions that we can get into. It's going to be a lot of fun. So thank you, as always, to everyone out there for listening, for watching, for spending your time with us week by week as you do. It means the world to us that you support us, however you do. And if you want to find out how to support the show more, as always, you can head over to patreon.com/takeyourtime. But in the meantime, until next week's episode, I hope you all out there seize the day.